All right, welcome to our explainer. Today we're diving into a really provocative article by an author named Hussam al-Hakim, and it's titled Exposing Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani. Now, the source makes some incredibly serious claims against one of the most powerful religious figures in the Shia world. So let's break down what the article alleges, slide by slide.
So, first things first. Who exactly is Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani? The source article kicks off by making it super clear that he's not just some local cleric. No, he's a figure of immense global importance. And according to the author, you really have to grasp the scale of his power to understand the claims that are coming next.
And to put his influence into perspective, the article throws out this number: 200 million. That's the estimated number of Shia Muslims around the globe who look to him for guidance. That makes him one of the most influential religious leaders alive today, period.
Yeah, the article paints this picture of him as way more than just a spiritual guide. He was born in Iran, but has been based in Najaf, Iraq for decades. He's what's known as a marja, which means a source of emulation. That's a huge deal. It means he's a top-tier religious authority whose rulings are followed by millions. The source also claims he's a massive political power broker in Iraq, saying that basically every government since 2003 has had to get his blessing.
And just to give you a feel for what it's like on the ground, the author describes this deep reverence that his followers have for him. This chant is used as an example of that devotion. It kind of frames him as a near-royal figure in the eyes of his supporters.
Okay, so let's get into the heart of the article's argument. A huge part of the author's case is built around a 10-month undercover investigation by the BBC. And the claim is that this investigation exposed a dark underworld operating right under the nose of the religious establishment. So what did this documentary supposedly uncover? According to the source, it was a whole network where clerics arranged these muta, or temporary pleasure marriages. The article says this practice, which exists in some schools of Shia Islam, allegedly involved contracts that could last for less than an hour. And it claims these arrangements often involved very vulnerable women, and most disturbingly, underage girls, from the millions of widows and orphans left by decades of war.
The source then visualizes the documentary's alleged findings like this. Out of 10 clerics the BBC interviewed undercover, it claims 8 of them agreed to arrange these temporary marriages. And here's the kicker. Of those 8, the source says that 4 of them were allegedly willing to arrange them with underage girls.
Then the article just hits you with these shocking quotes, supposedly from the hidden camera footage. This one is attributed to a man they identify as Sheikh Rod, who said he was a follower of Sistani. The source uses this quote to allege that very specific rules were being passed around for sexual acts with minors that stopped just short of actual intercourse.
And the article keeps going on this point, citing another cleric also described as a Sistani follower. He allegedly gave a very clear age of consent based on his religious understanding, just flat out saying that marriage with girls aged 9 and up was permissible.
Now, this is a really critical turn in the story. The author points out that after the documentary aired and caused a huge uproar, Ayatollah Sistani's official office put out a statement condemning the practice. So this creates a huge contradiction that the author wants to solve. Why would clerics who claim to follow him be doing something his own office is publicly denouncing?
So, if his office is denouncing it, where on earth could these clerics be getting these ideas? Well, that brings us to the next part of the article. The author says you don't have to look far. They claim the textual basis for all of this is right there in Ayatollah Sistani's own book of religious rulings. This book, Minhaj al-Salihin, isn't some obscure text. It's basically the go-to guide for his followers on how to practice their faith. And the author zooms in on one specific ruling, question number 8, to build the case that the clerics in the documentary weren't going rogue at all, but were actually acting in line with Sistani's teachings. Right, so here's what the article presents as its interpretation of that original text. It alleges that the ruling explicitly allowed for marriage to prepubescent girls, even infants, and permitted various forms of sexual gratification with them, with the only restriction being no penetration.
So, that naturally leads to another question, a really crucial one that the author pushes on. If the one single line that can't be crossed is penetration, what does the text say is the consequence for a man who breaks that rule with a girl under the age of 9?
The article claims the punishment, as laid out in the text, all depends on the outcome. As you can see here, if no physical injury happens, the man is said to only gain the sin of the action. But if physical harm is caused, the punishment described is a monetary fee, after which the marriage can allegedly just continue.
So this all leads to the author's next major claim.
that after this whole practice was exposed to the world, there was a deliberate effort to conceal the original religious text, a cover-up.
The author presents this timeline as what they see as direct evidence of that cover-up. They point out that the book version with the explicit language was published in 2013. Then, the BBC documentary airs in 2017, and just 1 year later, in 2018, a revised version of the text appears online. The author basically argues the timing is just too convenient to be a coincidence.
So what was changed? The author's argument is that the most damning phrases were either taken out or just obscured in the new edition. They claim the original clear permissions were hidden behind what the author calls linguistics to try and soften the ruling's impact and protect the institution's image after the public scandal.
Okay, now it's very important to note that what follows is the direct conclusion of the article's author, Hussam al-Hakim. This section is his personal viewpoint and his call to action based on all the evidence he's presented.
And the article ends with some incredibly strong, fiery language. The author dismisses the whole clerical establishment as corrupt, comparing them to non-working wolves in sheep's clothing who stood against prophets, and he calls on believers to reject their authority entirely.
The author's final message is an invitation. It's a direct appeal for readers to abandon mainstream Shia leadership and join a specific, newer religious movement called the Ahmadi Religion of Peace and Light, which the author presents as the only true path forward, led by who they believe is the Mahdi, a messianic figure in Islam.
And that concludes our look into this source article. It presents a fierce critique, connecting a media investigation to a close reading of religious texts to build its case. Ultimately, it leaves us with a broader question. When ancient texts face modern scrutiny, how do powerful institutions respond, and what does that response tell us about them?